It is a topic for debate among parents. Is an allowance appropriate? And if so, how do you go about it in a way that teaches kids real life lessons about money? Here to talk about allowance is Ron Lieber. He's the personal finance columnist for the New York Times and author of the book, The Opposite of Spoiled, Raising Kids Who Are Grounded, Generous, and Smart About Money. Welcome, Ron. Good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, let's start with the why. Some parents are on the fence about this. Why even have an allowance? What's the value?
Money is for practice. Allowance is a teaching tool. It falls in the same category as books, art supplies, musical instruments. This is something that they need to learn to do well, to do better. It takes a while, and they ought to practice at it.
There are right ways and wrong ways to doing the allowance, which we'll get to in a moment. But what's an appropriate age to start?
I think the best time to start is whenever they start wanting things. And often that will start at 3 or 4, and they're sort of grabbing at you and asking. And you know, at that point, they're actually ready to start distinguishing between wants and needs. So you can start then.
Now, as far as how much, I've heard things like $1 for every age that they are at. So if they're $7 a week. Is this a good way to measure it?
I think that's a good place to start for the kids who are still in the single digits. There, you want to give them enough so that they can get some of the things they want, but not so much that they don't have to make a lot of really hard choices.
Yes. And now, so you can tell I'm like really interested in this because I have a very young one and eventually he'll have an allowance and I want to learn all the tactical stuff. So cash or bank account. And now there are like all these platforms where you can virtually give them money and so they can see it growing. What do you prefer?
I actually think you should do all three. So between the ages of 6 and 10, you do cash. They need to learn to count. They need to watch it grow. It should be visceral. They should learn to use real money. I think between 10 and 14, you can go virtual and let them use some of the apps like Allowance Manager or FamZoo that help you keep track of this. And then when the kids are in high school, I think they're ready for some version of a bank account, a checking account, a debit card, so they can get used to using the same tools that grown-ups do.
How should you earn the allowance? This is, I think, where sometimes you can go right or wrong, right? I mean, growing up in my house, I had to make my bed. I wasn't going to get an allowance for making my bed. It was expected of me. So how should children earn the allowance so that it's a real teachable tool?
Sure. So the logical problem at the root of this is, many parents, it's usually between 80 and 90%, according to all the surveys that have been done, will tie allowance to the completion of chores. But if you do that, there will come a point when your smart aleck child will say to you, you know what, I've got enough money for now, so I'm not going to do the chores.
Right.
And then you're in a real pickle, right? Because you can either put your foot down and make them do the chores because you think, as you probably do, that everybody should do them, or you're stuck keeping the terms of the deal, and then you're doing all their chores, and that's no fun either. So you don't want to set yourself up for that.
I read a great story about a parent who had their son figure out projects around the house that he wanted to do for money. So he was thinking, okay, what's the need in the household? And then the second step was negotiate what you think you should earn. I love that story because it's really not only teaching about money, but entrepreneurship.
Sure, so that's a way you can go, right? The chores can be done for free in the house, all of the basic chores, but you can encourage your child to say to you, you know what, there are probably extra projects that need to be done here. If you can think of what they are, and if you can convince us that they are worth doing, and you can negotiate a wage for yourself, then you'll get some more money.
I love it. Thank you so much, Ron Lieber. The book is called The Opposite of Spoiled, Raising Kids Who Are Grounded, Generous, and Smart About Money.